Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches. Today I'm going to be talking about Alfred Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much, and specifically the 1934 British version from before Hitchcock moved to the United States, rather than the better-known 1956 version with James Stewart and Doris Day in the main roles. And in this film, we meet Bob and Jill Lawrence, a British couple who are on a trip to Switzerland with their daughter Betty. While on the trip, they become friendly with a Frenchman named Louis Bernard, and so they are understandably quite upset when he is shot and killed, particularly as Jill was dancing with him at the time of his murder. Now, before he dies, Louis whispers to Jill about a note that he needs taken to the British consul. This document proves to contain details of a planned assassination in England. The criminals who shot Louis get wind that the Lawrences have the note, and they kidnap their daughter Betty in order to ensure the couple's silence. Keep quiet or the kid gets it, basically. Now, allowing the criminals to think that they have been cowed, the Lawrences return to England. But the plucky couple aren't really going to give up without a fight, however, and their efforts to save their daughter and thwart the assassination comprise the bulk of the film. So The Man Who Knew Too Much is the only film that Hitchcock ever remade. Now, despite sharing the same title, however, the 1956 version is a considerably different film from this one in both plot and script. For one thing, it's more than 40 minutes longer. Now, in 1956, critics were split over whether the remake was an improvement on the original, and I personally think it was not. I like this earlier version considerably more, and most of the rest of the video is going to be me explaining why that is. So both versions of the film hinge on a fairly obvious conceit. A gang of criminals have planned an assassination and have already committed one murder to conceal it. Why, when the Lawrences, or the McKennas as they are named in the remake, learn of the plot, do the criminals not simply kill them as well? Kidnapping their child seems like a rather unreliable strategy by comparison, and of course events in both movies prove that to be the case. Now, you could definitely make arguments as to why the criminals might prefer to take this strategy. After all, the more murders you commit, the more attention you'll get. But the longer things go on and the more apparent it is that the Lawrences or McKennas are still trying to thwart them, the less those arguments hold up. Sooner or later, you need to do something. And in the 1934 film, with its lean 75-minute runtime and its very fast-paced narrative, there's not that much time on screen for the criminals to reassess their original decision and adapt to the fact that the people they thought they had neutralised are still a threat. The remake's much more leisurely pace gives the crooks, in my opinion, far too much time to change their minds, and we, the audience, far too much time to wonder why they don't. So I think this film's sense of urgency really does help it. Now, I've combined two features here because I think in this case they're inextricably entwined. And that is casting and characters. The later film, has much bigger stars in the leading roles. Doris Day, better known for her musical and comedic roles than for her dramatic ones, and the always excellent James Stewart. Unfortunately for Miss Day, I think that the script of the 1956 movie gives her character, Jo McKenna, nothing to do except fret about her child, which is quite at odds with this 1934 version, where the Jill Lawrence character plays a central role in the film's events, and in particular in the final resolution of whether or not Betty survives. And then on the criminal side of the script, the 1956 film cast British actor Bernard Miles as the villainous Edward Drayton. Now, Miles is a reliable and talented actor, and he does a solid job. But that's Peter Lorre in the image on your screen, and there's a good reason he was so heavily featured in the film's marketing. Lorre is at his sinister best here as evil mastermind Abbott in the 1934 film. It's a particularly impressive performance because he spoke very little English at the time the film was made, and he learned his lines phonetically. So, to my mind, this original film has more interesting characters, and the choice of Lorre in particular is a triumphant success. The third and final reason that I prefer the original version is a comparatively minor one in the grand scheme of things, but it was still a factor I very much enjoyed. Despite its lethal stakes and fast-paced narrative, the 1934 film still has a quintessentially English sense of decorum. For instance, there's a scene where Bob Lawrence is being held at gunpoint by the villains, and yet even as the threat of imminent murder hangs in the air, everyone remembers all of their pleases and thank yous and other social niceties. One must have standards after all, and simply because something is a matter of life and death is no reason to forget one's manners. And I found that a delightful sequence of the film, that everyone is being so precisely correct and ignoring the elephant in the room of kind of imminent murder. The 1934 Man Who Knew Too Much is Hitchcock at his best, with a lean and wry script that clatters along to a wholly satisfying conclusion. I think it's a fine little film, and it's well worth your time to hunt down. Next time, rev up the Chevy Impala and put on some hard rock, because it's time to look at the first 5 seasons of the CW's long-running urban fantasy show Supernatural. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.